Hey everyone, welcome to our Ask the Trainer session. I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to arrive since it's just 6 o'clock now. And we are live from our new yoga studio. Super excited about the new space. We've got new lighting, a new mic system so we can hear really well. And I'm planning on rolling out lots of new yoga videos for our channel here. So I'm super excited about that. So it's been a really busy July into August setting everything up. Sometimes I think it's easier just to like do the yoga, the dog stuff, and the technology stuff is its own thing altogether. But welcome to our new space. You can see River really likes it. Tao is hanging out as well off screen. And we're going to dive in. We have some really great things to talk about regarding dog training today. So, if you are not a TAO Dog member and you want to become one, if you're local to Connecticut, we have all different types of activities to enjoy with your dog, from outdoor dog yoga classes, dog training classes, hikes, yoga hikes, social paddles where you can learn to paddleboard and kayak, and then also introduction to paddling with your dog classes, all to get out there with our dogs and just enjoy, what we have left of fall here, or just coming into fall, what's left of summer, and getting out there together with our dogs. So that's local to Connecticut. One of the things you can do if you're a TAO Dog member is submit questions for these sessions ahead of time, which is really great. And I received quite a few questions and requests for this particular topic we're going to cover. So I'm definitely going to go over it. And it's something that I love to talk about and love to share with you all. So being a TAO Dog member, that's one of the perks. We also do a monthly member perk where you get to bring a family or friend for free to a class. We have canine massage coming into our programs and just different member perks each month for our members. So just something to think about. Diving into our topic, we are going to be talking about having our dogs off leash. That's a big one. It covers a lot. And I received quite a few questions around this or inquiries about how I do things off leash. What are my thoughts on off leash dogs? And then it ties into recalls and some obedience. So we're going to just kind of go through this topic. Again, as you all know, you can drop any questions at any time during this chat into the chat box, and I will pause when I'm talking about, get to those questions, and then we'll loop back. So we'll jump around a little as questions come in. Also, if you have questions on off leash work with your dog, and that's what we're talking about this evening together, you can drop comments or specific questions for your specific dog also into our chat. So when we talk about having dogs off leash, it's something that a lot of us dream to have with our dogs. And it's not always safe for every single dog to be off leash in a lot of scenarios. So we'll talk a little bit about that regarding dogs' temperament. So when you're thinking about maybe graduating your dog from being on leash to off leash, there's something to think about in terms of safety. How is your dog with other dogs? In terms of, are they friendly? Do they do nice greetings? Or maybe are they fearful of other dogs? If another dog were to approach or they were run into another dog on a trail, how would they react? Would they bolt? And how are they with people? Is your dog suspicious of people? Is your dog super friendly? Right? And both of those can pose some complications having your dog off leash in terms of control. So thinking about safety first. So I always think we want to give our dogs as much freedom as possible, but we've got to put the training in so that we can have the control and the obedience to then allow them to have access to a range of space far from us. But with safety being concerned, you want to have some specific considerations. If your dog is dog aggressive, or people aggressive, you really want to be thoughtful about taking them off leash, because not every situation is preventable. So even with training, even with the most reliable recall, there are times that we're surprised on the trail. It happens really often, actually, by other dogs being off leash and those dogs being out of control. Now, if you have a dog that's aggressive and it's too far away from you, and that other dog charges up, there's kind of a rule of thumb with the distance. If your dog's too far, they may not respond to you. They may be pulled more towards that other dog and respond to that other dog. Again, there's a lot of training we do to prevent that from happening, but it's not foolproof, right? Our dogs are not robots, they're living beings. So even if you have a 99% recall, it's really solid. There is that 1% that things can happen, or a dog runs up to you, or different things. So thinking about that. Some special considerations when you are working with a dog that maybe is aggressive, or you're going into areas where other dogs might be off leash, is to consider a long line for your dog. So you can give them some freedom, but you still have a leash and you can have good control. That can long line can also be a nice safety net for you if your dog has high prey drive, chases deer, chases other um, animals. And also, I always use a long line before I graduate off to off leash anyway. So it's a great training tool. The other thing that I've had different clients use, and I experimented with one dog that worked out well, was a basket muzzle. Training your dog to wear that so that your dog can still have that freedom. Maybe you're on a long line, training them to have all of that, and that way it's safety. If an off leash dog were to come up to you, um, you know that your dog can't do anything if there's true aggression. But we want to try to give our dogs as much freedom as possible, right? We want to get out there with our dogs and be able to enjoy and give them exercise outlets and keep them physically fit and mentally stimulated. So all of those things come into play depending on the temperament of your dog. And then from there, so once you look at your temperament of your dog, so say in general, your dog is social with other dogs and social with people. So you're like, check, Steph, we're good. We can skip that. We're going to talk a little bit about relationship. So many times when I'm asked to work with somebody, for instance, on a one-on-one base to train their dog to be off leash, the first thing is usually people are saying my dog doesn't always come when called. That's one of the biggest things. And people want to reach that off leash goal, but the dog won't come reliably. And the second is dogs chasing things like deer, like squirrels, like lack of impulse control running up to another dog. So those are the main problems that present. But really, if we peel back some of the layers with off leash behavior, we want to talk about relationship with our dogs. So the stronger connection and relationship you have with the dog, the more freedom you can give your dog. Which makes sense, right? If you have that connection and you have that nuanced relationship, you can then do a lot of things. So between where you're at and where your dog is at, more things are happening than just calling them back to you when you need them. There needs to be this element of connection with your dog, not just when you call them off of something or call them because you saw another dog on the trail and you need them to come. Your dog needs to be accountable to you and in relationship to you and in connection with you throughout your entire time off leash. And it doesn't mean that your dog is glued to your side in a heel. It doesn't mean that your dog is looking up and staring at you. This connection with your dog exists in your space right now. So if you're watching this and your dog is in your space, you're sharing that connection. I'm hanging out. Rivers actually has his feet touching me. So we have a physical connection, but energy wise, he knows we're hanging out in my yoga space. This is a calm space. He's relaxed with me. We're in connection. If I were to stand up quick, he's going to stand up quick. He's very responsive. Both of them are going to think they're going outside or we're doing something. So you are always in connection with your dog. They study you more than any other being in your life. So I really believe our pets, not just dogs, but cats and other pets, they're so intuitive and they know us probably better than some of the humans that we live with or are sharing our homes with. So, keeping that in mind, that connection is always existing, whether you are on a 6 foot leash with your dog or whether your dog is allowed to go on a 15-foot long line, 20-foot long line, or if you're graduating your dog to being off leash and they're maybe, 50 feet away from you, 100 feet away at times. I don't want to get them too far away from you in terms of hiking with your dog or just having them in general off leash. But that connection is always existing. So if you think about that, when you're really close, when you're in your home, you're more relaxed. Your dog is typically more relaxed. That connection is easier to maintain because you're in a contained space. There's not a lot of distractions. Put your dog on a 6 foot leash and you go outside, there's a lot more distractions. You're going to be competing for that attention because there's a lot of exciting things. And that strains the connection a little bit. So, how strong is your connection? Have you worked that piece? So that's always my first question is, do you have that connection on a 6 foot leash before we graduate to anything off leash? Can you go out, leash your dog walk out your front door, ask your dog to sit, and they'll check in with you and say like, "Hey, what's going on?" That's the first thing you need. Super simple, but if you don't have that, you're going to be kind of straining in that connection the entire walk, or you're going to be straining in that connection if you're like, oh, I don't have that connection, but I'm going to cut them loose anyway, and I don't have control. If you don't have that control right off the bat, you're going to be looking for it and trying to achieve that the whole time, almost chasing it, chasing that connection. Maybe using food to almost like lure or beg your dog to come back to you, shaking the treat pouch. We've all been there. We've all been there. Or waving your dog's favorite toy to get them to come back, right? Using our reward system as more of a lure and a convincer and not as much as the reward for doing the right thing. So think about that. You're on a 6-foot leash. Can you go out and have your dog check in with you? Are they with you? Once your dog is with you, you can do a lot of things. Teaching skills becomes easy. They're in that think and learn state, so they're ready to learn new things from you. And if there's a distraction, your chances of having them connect and stay under control are a lot higher. So starting there, from that space, say you have that, you want to think about giving your dog a little bit more room. What do they do with the extra space? So a lot of our dogs track us with the leash. If you have tension in your leash, your dog is paying attention to where you are based on that leash. When you go to give them a little bit of long line, typically a lot of dogs will go to the end of that line and they're like, okay, cool, I can track you that way. They can track you through the physical leash and then they can mentally disconnect and sniff and do whatever they want. So there's also that piece right there where we may lose that connection. So first, if you're trying this to graduate off a 6-foot leash going to a long line, give your dog a 15-foot, 20-foot long line. See what they do before you ask for anything. Notice if you walk a few paces, maybe you're in a field somewhere or you're on a hiking trail and you stop and you just wait. How long does it take your dog to check in with you? To go, oh, wait, we're doing this as a we. Every dog is different with that. Some dogs are so excited when you take them out, they'll start zooming around you. Some dogs will be sniffing and, minutes can go by before they even look up. I want to know what my dog naturally does. Then I know where to work from. If we go out and we start commanding that attention right away, right, we haven't figured out where our starting place is, right? We're not allowing our dog to have that little bit of more freedom to see what they do with it. Really, really important before you're going to cut them loose because you're like, well, if I don't have their attention at 6 feet, probably got to get that first. And then if I don't have it at 20 feet, well, you give them more distance. The more distance between you and your dog, the closer they are to the distractions, the harder it is to get them back. Right? So we want to take these little steps and you want to just get that feedback from your dog and really read your dog's behavior, right? And then from there, you can call your dog over, ask their name. They start checking in on their own. Sometimes that's all I'll do when I first start is I'll walk out with a long line and I go to a field and I walk a few paces, I stand still and I just wait. I don't give them a signal. I don't give them a cue. The only time I would interrupt it if a distraction was like incoming, I had an off-leash dog running up to me. I'm going to bring my dog in and get control of the situation. But if there's no distractions, I'm in an open field, we're good. I'm going to wait for my dog to check in. You can use a clicker and reward it if you're using clicker training, or a lot of times I just have a toy, I have my food and my voice. So I'm always saying yes. When my dog chooses me, yes, I'm feeding. Choosing me, choosing me, choosing me. Once I have that, I might go out and that's my first session. Can you choose me? That was great. You got to sniff. You got some more freedom. Maybe we're out there 20, 30 minutes. Maybe it's 10 minutes, right? Just depends on the dog. That went great. All right, next day I'm going to come out. Right, let's do it again. I stand, wait. Noticing if that time for my dog to check in gets less and less and less. Are you with me? Are we together? From there, we start to move more. All right, can I take a little bit of a walk with you? Can I walk a few paces and then you can check in, even if you're sniffing and the environment's changing? Where are we at with that? I want my dog to choose me. I want them to be the one that's checking in. If your dog is really stumped with this when you first try, use their name. If your dog knows their name, right? Say their name. They turn around, yes, feed. Say their name, turn around, help to give them that information. And then from there, I want to move with my dog. And us as humans, we are very predictable. If you do the same route around your neighborhood, typically our dogs will go to the end of the leash and they'll track you with the leash and they're just going to take you on the loop. We're creatures of habit. We like the routine. Our dogs definitely like the routine, but in terms of training, if we don't switch things up a little bit, it's hard because they start to pattern and your dog will just go out and do that route. So sometimes even in your neighborhood, switch directions, go the other way, keeps them guessing, keeps them paying attention to you. I'll walk out, I'll go up the usual route, and then I'll just, 20 paces in, turn around and go the other way. My dogs are like, what? I've got to get out of that habit because, especially with certain breeds, German Shepherds are one of them. Once you show them something, you go do it again. They're like, this is what we're doing. They anticipate. So then I'll have pulling and then I'm combating that. So I always like to keep my dogs guessing. So the same idea goes when I go to a new space. If there's a trail, I'm going to walk up and I'm not going to do the whole loop or up and back. I'm going to walk and then I'm going to turn around and walk the other way. My dog's like, what? We always go this way. We always do it to this point, and then you turn around and come on, not today. And guess what? Tomorrow it's going to be a little different. And again, on a loop, there's only so much variety you can do, or on a way out, but I vary it up. Sometimes I do the whole thing and I just get lost in my walk and I'm just going along. Switching it up, switch directions. Will your dog track you? All right. And how long does it take? So if you switch a direction, does your dog drive by on that 15-foot line and run by you? Right? They probably will at first. When my dog does that, I change directions again. I'm like, you better come find me. So I turn around and go the other way. They drive by and run by again. Switch directions. Dog comes, finally catches up to me. They look up at me. Boom. Big paycheck for that. 5 to 10 pieces of food. That was the best decision ever. All right, let's walk again. Walk. I go straight for a while. My dog gets ahead because they think they know where we're going. I take a left. And my dog's like, oh, not again. I'll do that for 20, 30 minutes in a field. All right, I don't even hit the trail yet. They're not off leash. I want to know, are you paying attention to where I am? Because if your dog is paying attention to where you are, imagine that's the cake, and then your recall is just the icing. They're in their connection with you. All you have to do is finish it and call them. Hey, this time I need you to come to me. I don't need you to just pay attention at 50 feet away. I actually need you to physically come here. That's the piece I think that's missing a lot with off-leash work is we miss that step. And maybe we just don't know how to teach it, right? So when I'm working with people, like, I've never heard it this way. I've never thought of that, right? It's just we go from this on leash, short leash, and maybe some long line work. And then maybe if the long line work's going well, we let the long line drag. And then once you feel confident in your dog, they're reliable, you start to practice off leash, in safe areas with low distractions and then build from there. But I think there's that gap in between. And I think that's what a lot of us are missing at times is we want to make that leap to off leash because we're like, oh, I just want my dog to have the freedom. Like, who doesn't? And I don't want to have to always be on leash and like working on my loose leash walking. And I want my dog to just be a dog. Beautiful. There's some work to get there. And if you take these steps and you do them a little bit, and you don't skip over and just rush to say, oh, I'm just going to get them off leash and give them that, teach them to be accountable to you. If you're starting with a young puppy, this is what you want to do. I'll take young puppies. When I got River in TAO, TAO was like 8 weeks when I got her, and River was 10 weeks. We started, they were little, they'd follow me around. So I'd start with a fenced in area where it's super safe. And then I'd go to areas that, maybe we're larger and fenced in. And then I go to areas where there's nothing going on. And when they're little puppies, they worship the ground you walk on, right? They're little babies. They're like, oh, I'm going to do everything you tell me. And then when my dogs hit the teenage stage, which is usually like starts to shift around 5, 6 months, 7 months, well, you're on a long line when we go places, or they've already been introduced to that usually because we might be at the beach. And the first time at the beach, I'm not cutting my 4-month-old puppy loose because I have no idea what they're going to do. So on a long line, if that goes well, you can drag the long line, keeping you safe with the water, keeping you safe. So that becomes your safety line. And to give just like a point of reference on how long it took, River was probably a year and a half before I felt like I was taking him off leash reliably and not using my long line here and there. Because once you hit the teenage stage, there's a lot of management that happens. So it's almost like you got the freedom off leash, put him back on a leash, just say like, yeah, I know you're super friendly, but you can't run up to every dog and person you meet because you're an 80-pound German Shepherd and they don't understand you're friendly. right? Good dog etiquette. I don't want to scare people. Even though my dog is friendly, I'm not going to allow him to run up. And the same goes if you have a golden retriever or a lab, right? Just because they're not maybe one of the more intimidating breeds, and people are like, it's a lab, it's fine, it can run up. You don't know what the other person has for a dog. You don't know if they have a reactive dog or if their dog is, really scared if a dog runs up. So yeah, a year and a half. And then from there, it was proofing. River's 4 now, Tao's 11. So, Tao's been, I walk with Tao in the woods all the time, and we don't even talk on our walks because over the years of establishing those relationships, going different places, establishing your off leash reliability, you can just silently walk with your dog. They're in connection. You can move, you can take a right, you can take a left, and they just follow. Even if they're ahead, they'll come back. It becomes this almost silent dance you do. So it's not orchestrated. In the beginning, you got to teach them that. You follow me, right? And then you can have these peaceful walks with your dog because they're in connection. I might go an entire, half an hour or an hour, I should say an hour and a half with Tao. She's older, so I don't go too long with her, but say we go up to like an hour and a half and not even talk to her the whole time. And people are like, that's crazy. I don't always have food on me. I don't always have a toy on me. Sometimes I forgot whatever gear it was at home. Like, right? I think people think dog trainers always have all their stuff all the time. Like 90% of the time I'm good. But right, like I had a long day and I don't have any of my stuff. Well, she's 11. We have a relationship, right? And you have a relationship with your dog. And that's where all this comes into play. This isn't about food. This isn't about a toy. Those are your rewards. This is about them being with you, teaching them to be accountable to you. And dogs like that. Dogs like to feel like they have that relationship with you. They want to be accountable. They want to be held accountable. They like rules and structure. So working up to that, you can have that peaceful walk where it's silent because we didn't run into any distractions. I didn't have to call Tao. She was just like, whatever, right? We just moved about space. There was no need to communicate because that was enough. We were paying attention to where each other were. We'd make eye contact. I'd nod at her. She'd just keep going. You can get there, right? But it's all these little steps. And also, if you're working with a young dog, waiting for them to mature, right? The expectations I have of River at 4 are very different than when he was 11 months old. When he was 11 months old, I had to keep telling him, that's not the decision. You don't get to go run up to everybody. Most social dog I've ever had. Love that about him. But if you have a social dog, taking them off leash can be really challenging because they're going to want to leave you to go say hi to everybody. It's what we love about our dogs is them to be really highly social, but then it's the thing that's really hard that we have to train opposite. 11 months old, he's making not the best decisions. He's a teenager, right? Then as we get to the 2-year mark, he's starting to mature. I can layer in more training, more accountability, more work. Now he's 4, same thing. We go out, I don't have to talk to him. He's in connection, he's paying attention. We've created a paradigm, and each of my dogs is very different in their personalities and temperament. We've created a paradigm that it isn't about the reward. It's about being together. It's about when we go do things, we work together. I don't tell him what to do, right? He's showing up and he wants to do things because we're having fun. He's on a hike with me and he sees the river and he wants to run for it. It's like, whoop, you got to wait. I don't know if somebody's down there. Ask him to heel. He has to heel up, wait. Okay, you're safe to go, go. That's the relationship and the control. It's not about me saying, I have so much control over him and he's like suppressed. And no, he's fast and he's explosive when he runs and he's free and his tail is up and he's, running towards us, happy, but there's accountability, right? So those rules, he can have all that freedom with those rules and he needs rules because he's really fast. So if he decides to do something like chase a deer, I have to be able to have those rules. You're not allowed to do that. You have to come back to me when you see one. And so far, so good. But when I'm out with him, I have to be aware that that can happen. Good boy, buddy. Relationship. So not skipping all of these little steps, right? Making sure that you do all those little pieces and finding that connection and realizing that your dog, will do things for food, but your dog really wants to do things like with you and they want to be accountable to you. And some dogs for you, right? Some dogs are like, I'll do anything for you. And you're like, that's okay. I don't need you to do everything. Right? They're like, I don't care. I'm in traffic for you. You're the best. Right? Some dogs just worship the ground we walk on naturally, and other dogs you have to earn it. River, from when he was a puppy, was like, I just want to be with you. That's cool. You don't need to have anything. Those rewards are great. Tao, she was very independent. She's like, where's the cookie? I'm like, so we had to establish, like, even though I'm going to reward you, you need to come to me when you're called. Even though she doesn't get in any trouble, she's still got to come if I call her. She can have that freedom, but those are the rules, right? And not every time I have treats on me. Sometimes I forget. That being said, when you are out and about with your dog and you're working on these things, do bring your rewards. If your dog in the back of their mind thinks every time you call or they do a really good check in, they're getting paid, that's going to make those behaviors stronger and stronger and stronger. If your dog gets rewarded 50% of the time, the behaviors start to drop off. Yes, they're going to want to do it for you, but that comes on a long enough timeline. When I'm out with my dogs, I would say, like, River has his ball as his reward. I'd say 50% of the time Tao has a ball, sometimes not. And then I would say like 50% of the time I have food, and they're 11 and 4, but there's always some kind of reward, whether it's a toy or food. And then occasionally I go out without it. And that's kind of my test. Are you going to come without that just for praise? Good. But I never want to take for granted the level of off-leash reliability I have with my dogs. And even Tao at 11, sometimes it's leftover steak. I'm like, I got a little piece, let's get cut up, throw it in a baggie, it's in my pocket. And she's like, I have no idea why there's steak today, but I'm going to come really nicely every single time you call. It's like a lottery system. So when you're thinking about being off leash with your dogs, I have a list, but it's all tying together, kind of moving back and forth. When you think about that, you want to think about your reward systems. If your dog comes to you and you give them one treat and they just left, like, maybe a dog that was coming down the path, they left everything that they like, and you give them one little, like, kind of low value treat, and you expect them to be excited about that and that reward, and it's kind of like, oh, you did so good, that they're going to want to come back again. Maybe your dog will, just because they're really good. But most of our dogs are going to be like, I worked really hard for that, and that reward did not match that, and your enthusiasm did not match that. You got to turn it up a little. You got to give me a little something. So if I'm calling my dog and, like, they saw another dog and I call their name and they come flying down that path at me, like, they are so excited to run to me, it's a huge party. And I don't fake it. I'm really that excited because I'm like, my alternative is you're off saying hi to another dog. They know, your dogs know. So be authentic in your praise. And that might be a really, like, you have a lower voice and you're like, you're so good. You're the best dog. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Awesome. I'm going to feed you one treat, two treats, three. Oh, you're the best. Soup. And your dog's like, whoa. Well, that got their attention because your dog wants to be accountable to you. They want to be in partnership with you. They want that relationship. And when you're genuinely happy, you don't have to shout. You don't have to yell. You can if you're like, woohoo. Sometimes I jump around with River and I tell him he's the best boy, and I go wild when he does something really super in his training. They feel that, they know that. I think that's so important, because I've spent a lot of time with different dog trainers and working with a lot of different people. And I've heard over and over from different trainers of suggesting people change their tone of voice. They change their volume of their voice, maybe it's more high pitched, and it's not authentic, and it feels strained for the person, and it doesn't feel right to the person. Your dogs know that. And they're kind of like, why are you doing weird things with your voice? When I trial River and I get out in a field and I feel like under pressure, my voice changes. I'm like, I've never told him to sit in that tone before. And you know what? He looks at me and he's like, what's up with you? And he reacts to it. Sometimes pauses or is hesitant or is like, that's weird. Your dog is so in tune with you. So be authentic. So if you're somebody who likes to have a party and that gets your dog excited and that makes it, like, better, awesome. If your dog is more soft and sensitive and you raise your voice, and if I raise my voice even in praise, my dog is gonna, then it's a whisper. I'm like, you're so good. And a big smile on my face. And I'm feeding treats, and a minimum of 5 treats, and high value treats. Like, my highest value I've got. Sometimes I cut up a little chicken, mix it in with my high value treats. I'm paying for that always. Then sometimes when my dogs come, they'll come. I ask them to sit. They check in. Super. I just talk to them. That was really good. And then I release them, and running away and getting to have their freedom is the reward. So switching up, when you're first teaching a recall, you want to pay a lot. Every time you come, you want to condition your dog. You come, you get a big paycheck, and I'm always happy with you. I'm never going to yell at you, right? I want to condition that. Then it's a lottery system. Sometimes I pull out your favorite ball. And like for River, that's like his favorite day in the world or favorite moment of the day or however you want to call it. He's like, party's on, right? And then sometimes we go out and he's just working for food. And sometimes they come and it's verbal praise. Okay, go. Super, that was great. Sometimes they check in and I pay for that. Once I establish a check-in with my dogs, that just becomes base level. I don't pay them every time they check in once we've established that. That's an expectation. You're accountable to that. If they don't check in, I switch directions. I'm like, wow, none of them have checked in the past 2 minutes. Turn around. I don't say a thing. And they come barreling down the trail and they're like, where did you go? I'm like, well, maybe if you checked in, you would have known 30 seconds ago. Have fun with your dogs. That's the beauty of giving them this freedom, is having fun, but we need to be participating in it. It can't just be, those silent walks are nice, but we can't be checked out. We can't be on our phones. We can, but your dog knows it. Your dog will literally be attentive to you. You go on your phone, go for a walk, and they just blow you off the whole time. And I've seen it with my own dogs because I've had to take a quick call on my walks, and they're like, she's not on. I've seen it with clients that I work with where the dog is drastically different when they're on their phone and they're not on the phone. River's so sensitive to the phone that if I hit a like on Facebook, um, there's probably something, and they say there's research on this, but this is how in tune this dog is with me. And I think your dogs are doing that more. And if you're open to looking at that connection, if I hit a like, he'll come over, he'll jump up from laying down next to me and come right over and look at me. So either it's stress or whatever I'm giving off. I don't feel stress when I'm liking something and commenting like, love that picture. There's something, a shift in my energy. I don't know what it is exactly. I'm paying more attention to it. I think sometimes it's like I'm getting excited, right? I'm like, oh, that was cool. Or it was positive. Or someone wrote a comment on a post I did. I'm like, oh, I'm glad that helped you. That was awesome. He picks up on that. And that surprised me, but it was consistent every time he hears that noise. It's conditioned. And there's nothing else I'm doing besides doing that. So your dog is always in connection with you and they're always paying attention. So be present for your dog. And I teach dog yoga for that reason too. It's not that my dogs are always calm. It's conditioned and it's conditional. Hey, when I'm in this space, when I'm present, when I'm calm, when I'm breathing and my body is doing this, they mirror you, right? You mirror that. When I'm having a party or River and I need to go out in the field and I want his energy up, my energy's up. I'm lifted, my shoulders are back, I'm breathing, I'm moving, and I'm holding my body with a whole different presence. And then when we're waiting for our turn to train, I'm relaxed, I'm cool. Yeah, let's just conserve our energy. And then when we're ready to go, it's up. So it's really fun to train your dog in that way, where you're matching them and you're moving with them in that way. And it's supposed to be fun. That's why we're here, right? That's why we have dogs. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to reach these high training goals. But I think if you really look at what you do have with your dog that you already have, and you build on that relationship and that connection, you'll get there. You're going to get there with those advanced goals. If that's where you're coming from and you're authentic in how you approach your dog. Same goes if I'm upset, right? Sometimes River brings extra energy when he shouldn't, because he's spun up, or we just finished a training session and he doesn't want to relax. So I've got to be really firm and just say, all done, and go lay on your bed. Like, that's it. And if he carries on, sometimes it even means he's crate trained. He loves his crate, but that helps him to turn off. He's like, thank you. He gets in there and he's like, oh, tired. Right? So being really clear with those boundaries too. Like, it's positive, it's fun. But they know that, right? They respond really well to that rules of condition. We did that. That was fun. I'm calming down now. Now you can calm down, right? And sometimes those tools, sometimes giving your dog a special chew to help them to relax on a bed. Hey, you have a younger puppy and they have a hard time regulating, they have a hard time turning off. Well, when I sit and I watch TV after I eat dinner, this is what you do. Go to your bed and work on your chew, work on your topple, work on your frozen Kong, work on your bone. And I do that every single night with a puppy. Teach them a tie down too. You're tied here. You're with me. This is what you do. As they get older, they start to automatically do that. So condition your dog to what you want. Condition your dog to your routine. This all ties into off-leash behavior. You're like, how, Steph? That's crazy. Your dog is always in connection. So if you want to achieve those bigger picture goals with your dog, you have to pay attention to that every day. I want my dogs to be in that flow with me that we have off leash in my day-to-day life. And it doesn't mean they're following me around. They're matching the energy. So if I'm buzzing around my house, like yesterday I was doing a lot of cleaning, and sometimes we have 3 shepherds here in our house. Those are 3 dogs. And sometimes we have like 4 or 5 shepherds, and they all somehow get along, and there's crates, and they all manage and live happily together at times. But when I'm cleaning, I'm buzzing around, right? So their energy, Italian River following me from room to room. River wanted to bark at the vacuum. So his energy's up because it's not just these exciting things that are moving and making noise. It's me. Because I'm trying to get all that done in 2 hours because I like to power clean. I'm like, I'm on it. I'm doing this. I'm doing the lunch. Good. So I have a choice there. My dog is going to match my energy. At that point, I'm like, I really don't want you to. So sometimes it's like, okay, you go in the bedroom on your bed and I'm going to give you a bone. I'm going to buzz around the house because it just becomes me and 2 dogs or 3 dogs running around together. And I don't get as much done because I'm trying to vacuum and all their dog hair just keeps coming off because they're shepherds. So thinking about those times in your day, what do I want my dog to be? They're going to be in connection with me always, but do I want them to be in this connection right now with what I'm doing? And you can have both. So people ask me that, how do you compete in American Shih Tzu with River and also do dog yoga with him? And I'm like, they go hand in hand because it's all about that connection. And so when I'm nervous, if he and I have practiced breathing together, calming, I put my hand on him really calmly like I do in yoga. It grounds us. It's like, all right, we're nervous, but we're ready. Like, let's go out there and let's do this. Being able to find that, I wouldn't be able to find that if I wasn't doing the dog yoga piece. But when we need those moments, he's like, I know what this means. We do this. Even if it's for 3 seconds, that's all we need. It's there. Same goes with really having fun with your dog. When I want to turn it on and I want to build energy and I'm like, River, give it everything you have. My voice, I breathe. I'm like, yeah, let's go. I get them all jazzed up in a breath, in 3 seconds, in a moment. We do our thing. And then, okay, when we're done, we need to turn it down. He struggles more with, he's good at turning it on. He has a hard time turning it off. But I know that. And so support him. All right, I'm going to slow myself down. I'm going to slow my breathing down, take it down a notch. Pay attention to that routine with your dog, what you do, how they respond to you. And if this is what your takeaway is, not even an off leash training for your dog, think about that. That will impact everything. If you're in connection and you're in that nuance, think of being out with distractions. Those distractions are going to pull your dog away from you. That connection, that's when the strain happens. That's when we feel like we're begging for the attention. But if you're able to connect to your dog, you're able to reward them, then you're able to release them. So when I call my dogs and it's a big party, you guys are the best, I release and my energy drops. Back to what we were doing, plodding along. I don't expect that level of intensity. I don't want them to be racing back to me. I want them to enjoy their walk. I want them to take in the environment. That's what we're there to do. And I want to be able to kind of allow myself to slow down. And I walk because it's meditation for me. Yeah. So if you like to walk your dogs, it's meditative. It's like rhythmic. You get lost in it. You get lost in your thoughts. You can still be in that connection with your dog and also be in your own thoughts because you're in and out of your own thoughts. You're watching your dogs and you're all doing that together. So you're all sharing in that, right? And you're still present. It's okay to get lost in your thoughts sometimes. And you don't have to be hyper vigilant all the time with your dog. It's part of the fun. All right, so let's see what else I had here for us to do. And again, you can drop any questions you have about this or anything else as we go. So freedom comes with the level of relationship. So we just touched on that. The stronger your relationship is throughout, the better that will become for you. If your dog knows to be in connection with you and you're matching them, and it's kind of like an energy match, right? We use food and we use toys to reward, but I don't walk around with food. Today we played in the yard with toys, but I don't, at night, they go to their beds and they get a treat at the end of the night. end of the day, just before they go to bed, because I like to send them to their bed and they know it's like we're done for the night. And that's just a fun game they like to play. But other than that, it's like our relationship's not based on food. And I've spent the entire day with the dogs, except for like 3 hours. And so we're just in and out together. That's what I want for you and your dog. You know, you'd be able to find those moments where it's not based on necessarily any reward, but just on you. Your dogs are also your mirror. So if you're stressed and your dogs are all up in your space and um, they won't leave you alone, they're letting you know something, right? And maybe it's irritating because you're like, just leave me alone, right? But they're trying to let you know and trying to bring to your awareness that you do need to take a moment, you do need to relax. That sometimes if we see that as irritable and we want to push them away, maybe that's our signal to actually say, like, thank you. Like, thanks for letting me know, because when we're uncomfortable, our dogs will get uncomfortable. If you're dealing with reactivity or anxiety in a dog, when we go out and we see another dog, if we have a dog that explodes at other dogs and is very reactive, we instantly look at that dog and we get nervous. And it's not, it goes down the leash, and you hear that all the time, but it's energy. You literally, you're this shift, the pheromones we give off, so our dogs are smelling that. We hold our breath and we're like, oh crap, this is going to go bad. And then it does, because it's this whole picture of the two of you. You start to find that. So the more you can find that in low stress times in your life, or if your dogs are saying to you, I've learned that from River. He'll be in, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna take a beat. I'm gonna slow it down a little bit. Otherwise, he'll keep persisting. So we talked a little bit about reward systems, really important with all of what you're doing. Behaviors you're really happy with, especially when your dog made a choice. If your dog chooses something and it's something you want, pay it, and pay it with high value, and pay it with a lot. Praise, food, toy, whatever it is, because that choice is stronger than you asking necessarily for it, because they chose it. It's on their own volition, and that will hold up. And then if you pair that with, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted you to do, and I'm super proud of you for that, that helps to solidify that choice, and they remember that. And you want them to keep doing that over and over and over. Because of all the choices our dogs can make, when they make the right one, you want to be there and you want to have the tools you need to reward it. Some of the things I also do on a walk on a long line, pause for a moment, on leash. So, of course, during our walk, I'm going to practice recalls, calling my dog back. They might be checking in. That's good. I acknowledge it. I tell them they're good. Head nod, eye contact. Then I want to work on recalls. I want to obviously call my dog when I need to, really important. But I also don't want to overuse the recalls. So sometimes I call when there's no distractions, because I want to make sure that's really strong. So that if that's really strong, then I know there's a dog up ahead or a person coming, and I need to call my dogs and put them back on leash to have them sit while people go by or whatever. Um, I don't want to wait till the distraction's there and it be a test. I want to know, like, all right, so I'll start my walk. Maybe we're 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes in. I'm going to do a recall. Where are they at today? It's like, okay, you're good. You're sharp. Carry on. If I'm hiking with my dogs for an hour, I might do, depending on if there's no distractions, like 3 recalls. With distractions or other things, I mean, I'm going to call. Sometimes it's like you might do 10 because there's a ton of people out with dogs or out hiking. But sometimes it's only 5. I don't do a ton if I can help it, because for dogs, especially like my dogs in particular, at a certain point, if you do too many recalls, they lose that fire. They lose that spark. Your dog starts to wonder, why are you calling me back to just send me again? Why are you calling me back? And they're like, oh, okay, now you're predictable. You're just going to keep calling me. So either your dog doesn't go away from you because they're just like, you're just going to call me back and I'm saving the time, or they start to come less, or they kind of blow off the recall because they're like, all you do is the same thing. It's repetitive and it doesn't make sense to them. Only call me when you need me. So I make sure that they're going to come when there's not a distraction, but I don't keep overdoing it. I want it to be when they hear that it's exciting, it's fresh, they know they're getting a big payout for that, with a reward. So not overdoing your recalls. If your dog is checking in with you, you won't have to keep calling them back all the time. They'll just stop on the trail, look at you. You're like, cool, we're still together. Good, keep going. Um, so try not to overdo the recalls. Use it obviously when you need it, but not all the time. I learned that I had a cane corso. I think she was a cane corso Rottweiler mix. I don't know, some kind of cane corso mix. Awesome dog. I've had German shepherds and pit mixes before that. Mastiffs are very different. So for her, it was actually faster if I told her to wait and I caught up to her when I needed to get her back on leash than it was to say her name and have her come to me because she was so slow. She was big. And as she got older, it's not that she was disobedient, it just took a lot of energy. So you can imagine I could call her when I really needed her, but I had to use that sparingly. So I used the wait a lot of times, tell her to wait, sit, come up to her, leash her, and then come because I knew that it was a timing thing. I could get there quicker. It didn't matter how much of a reward, how much I cheerleaded, how that was who she was. Right. So getting creative too with your dog doesn't always have to be, they have to do this perfect because that's how it's done. Right. Think outside the box a little and think how your dog thinks. She's the one that taught me that. She's like, that's a lot of effort. When you do that more than 2 times, I'm probably just gonna really be slow, which is what happened. And then play a game of hide and seek. So I like to do this with puppies when I first get them, or any puppies I'm training for anyone or raising for service work. Put them on a long line. I go somewhere where there's a hiking trail, and I allow them to go ahead because at this point they're building their confidence. They're out with me. They think they're all big and bad, and that's what I want every puppy to think, that they're confident and they've got everything in the world. There's nothing scary. We're good, right? That's part of that relationship and confidence we want in our puppies. So they're off doing their thing, and then I just dip behind a tree and I don't say anything. And I'll kind of peek around the tree, but they're on a long line, and I just wait for them to go off. And then if the puppy turns around and comes running back, they might run by the tree and then they see me, and then it's a big party, big, big paycheck with food and like, woohoo, you're the best puppy, pup, pup, pup. Good. We go along again. I go a bunch of paces. Maybe I throw in a recall. We change directions, make sure they're with me. Duck behind a tree and just wait. Have them come to me. If you have a puppy that panics when you do that, right? If they get a little concerned and they're like, where are you? Let them find you, right? But if you get a puppy that actually gets out there and is like, oh no, call them, of course. Pop, 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 come on. If they're still learning the name, come on, come on. Yeah, that's good, right here. You can reward them. So sometimes I let the dog figure it out. Sometimes I dip, I let the dog start to get ahead and I call them because I want my dog looking for me. It's not always predictable. So, if they think I'm behind them all the time, we're on the same trail, I'm kind of half checking in. But if they don't know, oh, she disappeared, I better go find her. Dogs have a very keen sense of smell too. So they'll find you. So things I do as puppies, that goes well. And then sometimes months will go by and I'll forget I even did that, right? Because I'm working on other things, or I switch it up enough that, and then I'll just pull it back out. My dog's 8 months old, let him get ahead, duck behind a tree. Oh, they remember. They come find me. All right. I'm not always predictable, right? I'm always present and I'm always here. And even when I'm doing these exercises, I'm fully present. I'm watching my dog behind the tree. I'm making sure everybody's safe. I'm with them. But it's a game. So having fun. You're working with your dog's natural instincts to want to be in partnership with you. It's already there. These are just ways that you can help reinforce it. Yeah. Teach them to do that. Find me. That's great. And when you find me, it's the best thing you ever did. Best choice you've ever made. And then I think that's everything. And that my last thought was, not to be predictable. And we just covered that. So not being predictable, being present and being reliable and being consistent, but switching it up. And I'll add one more thing on predictability because I work with a lot of dogs with anxiety. So people look up trainers in my area, or people will look up dog yoga and I pop up and they're like, I really want to bring my dog to a dog yoga class, but they're overstimulated when I take them out. They're overexcited or they're really anxious. And some of that overstimulation creates anxiety in a dog. So I get that a lot because I teach dog yoga, which is great because I love teaching these kind of techniques to help with overstimulation or anxiety. But with anxiety, their predictability and structure is really important. So I do want to have that little bit of a conversation with you is you want to switch it up. Again, we don't want to put dogs into panic. That's not a healthy part of relationship. A little bit of concern, where are you? Find you? Great. We don't want to do things so different all the time that our dogs don't have enough structure and then they're anxious. Right? And in humans, it's healthy for us to have structure. It's healthy for us to go to sleep around the same times. It's healthy for us to eat around the same times. For a lot of us, eat the same types of foods that agree with us or that feel good in our bodies. Exercise regularly, our routines. And then we also are super adaptive, and our dogs are really adaptive too and adaptable. But there needs to be some baseline structure you have with your dog so that they can come into that connection with you and that routine with you. It's like when you get up, these are the basic things you do throughout your day. You might vary it. So bringing in variation within the structure that you've already created. And so if you're working with your dog, and again, this all ties to off leash, you want to get there with your dog, you got to have these other pieces. There's got to be structure and trust. So you have to be able to trust your dog out there, but your dog has to trust you. So if your routine is very different, it doesn't mean like some mornings I get up at 5 a.m. and the dogs are getting fed at 5:30. Some mornings I get up at 7 and they get fed at 7:30. They know based on me, when I get up, I let them out, I make my coffee, they come in, I get their bowls. So there's a structure to it. Just because it's 2 hours later, that's okay with my dogs. Some dogs are going to wake you up at 5 a.m., expect you to feed. But I teach my dogs to be a little flexible because sometimes I'm tired or I went to bed late, right? Sometimes my structure, my routine's a little out of sync. But I try to create the same rhythm, so the same behaviors, the same patterns of behaviors that I do. Then there's the midday, which there's some flexibility. So sometimes my dogs are going off leash for a hike. Sometimes we're going to the fields and we'll get individual training time that day. Sometimes my dogs will get multiple things. Sometimes they're walking with me as I train other clients' dogs, or Tao's coming to dog yoga, or River's coming to do something with my friend and her dog. So there's a lot of variation, but what's consistent is I'm present, I'm focused on what we're doing while we're doing it. Right. And my dogs are flexible like that, but your dog may be more anxious if you start saying, well, today we're going here, today we're going there. You don't have to do any of that. First, get your structure. All right, get your rhythm. Okay, so I want to introduce my dog to some more of these off leash things. I'm going to find a local field that's quiet. So sometimes, like, we have ball fields that if it's out of season, or soccer fields, as long as you can have dogs, but a lot of times just on the side, they'll let us have dogs like in my town. So, and I'll just go there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start going here. I'm going to build this into the routine. One small, simple thing. And when we're here, this is what we do until that's good. Then I'm going to introduce the new concepts, right? I'm going to start to move a little bit. What do you do? Okay. Then you can have a lot of variety within that same location. So if your dog's anxious in new locations, you start in one location, get them so they're confident, get them so they're working with you, that you have that there. Then once you have that, maybe you're doing that every day for a month. You're like, yeah, this is our new thing I've added in. Great. Next month, you're like, we're going to do that. And then I'm going to add this other new area, right? So, some days we go here. Well, guess what? 2 days a week, we're going here. Guess what? Same gig. I'm consistent in what I do. I'm reliable. I'm present. I show up. I support, right? So if you get out of the car and you've worked on your dog checking in and being with you, you get out of the car and you're like, I'm here. Are you ready? And your dog's like, yes or no. They're like, oh, no, I'm not. I'm like, all right, go to the bathroom. 3 minutes pass by. They've gone to the bathroom. They're okay. And they look at me. They're like, now I'm ready. All right, cool. Now we're going to start. You can create that, right? Because once you have that with your dog, you can go a lot of different places because they trust in you that you're going to support them and lead them. And that ties to more freedom, that ties to more off leash reliability, because that connection is just going to extend further and further from you. So that's my challenge with off leash for all of you is think about that connection first and then work to that. And even if you're never taking your dog off leash, working that connection in, being in partnership with your dog opens up so much freedom for your dog. Your dog can, when they're not in a fenced in space, if you're worried that your dog is going to chase wildlife and you're like, no, Steph, I'm going to always have my dog on a 6 foot leash. And if I put him on a 15-foot leash and they go, they're going to hurt me. They're going to pull me down or I'm injured. When you're on your walk, stay on a 6 foot leash. Like no one ever said you had to take them on anything longer. Our talk is about off leash right now, but you don't have to do any of that. Keep them on a 6 foot leash. They can run around with their friends in your yard. You don't have to worry about them taking off after wildlife. You don't have to worry about them running across a car, chasing traffic and getting hit by a car, chasing wildlife. Yeah, manage that, right? You can manage that. You can train around that too, and layer things in, but you can always have your dog on a 6 foot leash. But if you create that connection, it doesn't have to be freedom away from you. It can be freedom with you. You can go on hikes everywhere. You can take your dog traveling with you, working through those things. You get at a rest stop. Well, that's a very stimulating environment. And you want to make sure your dog is safe. And my dogs are always on 6 foot leash when I'm in a parking lot, on a sidewalk, at a rest stop. I'm very careful at rest stops because especially if it's on a highway and I camp with the dogs. So I'm traveling a lot of highways. I usually get off the highway. So I just have that extra level of safety. Um, you want to make sure you're in connection because your dog's going to be so excited and it can be dangerous. Right? I want my dogs to get out and be like, whoa, there's a lot going on. And then they're like, okay, same gig, like check in with you for direction. Like, well, what's up here? Same gig. We're going to go to the bathroom. Then we're getting back in the car. We're going to go another hour and then I'm going to take you to the park and then you can cut loose and run a little bit. So thinking about keeping your dog safe. So I really want to clarify that. We talked at the beginning about not every dog should be off leash for safety based on temperament. Just because your dog is off leash trained doesn't mean that they shouldn't be on leash in busy areas with traffic, with other dogs on leash. If it's a place where your dog should be on leash, you should have them on leash. I follow all the leash laws and leash rules. I take my dogs places where I can have them off leash. We're way out in the woods, different spots that are local, that they're allowed to be. That's fine. But we have a lot of state parks. The dogs are on leash. When I lead my group hikes, our dogs are on 6 foot leash, hiking together, following those rules out of respect for the other people hiking there. If we all go to the same space and my dog is comfortable and feels safe with me and not anxious when he's close, but an off-leash dog charges us, and I thought I was safe to go to this area because it's an on-leash park, right? I could bring my dog. My dog can have that freedom now. So we want to be respectful of each other. So I always follow those guidelines, even though my dogs are off leash a lot. I spend a lot of times finding areas that I can do that with them because that's what we enjoy. But my dogs are on leash for group events. My dogs are on leash in class. My dogs are not going up and greeting everybody. I follow all the same guidelines that I recommend for everybody else to do as a trainer, and also just like living with other people in our community with dogs. So you want to follow those rules. Even if your dog is off leash reliable, keep them safe, right? I always do that. I keep them safe, make sure that they are managed around those type of things. So yeah. So that covers so much about off leash, but really deep dive into connection. That's what I love about our talks. Even if there aren't any questions, I had a ton come in from our members. So this led this really different dynamic discussion, which a lot of our conversations here together are going to loop back to relationship and connection. It's really the foundation for everything. And that's my approach as a trainer. My good friend Eric always said, if you've got a bunch of dog trainers together, the only thing they're going to agree on is what the other one does wrong, right? And it's so true. Us dog trainers are an opinionated bunch. I love to hear what other people think and other people's approach, though, because you learn a lot. So you learn a lot about what works for you, and also some of the concepts that maybe don't, or that you don't align with how you want to train, right? So being open to that, open to these discussions. I appreciate all of you joining me each month, and members, you can submit your questions in advance, but we'll be having our next Ask the Trainer next month. I'll be posting it probably tomorrow morning, the date. I like to do them on Thursday evenings. And if you have a preferred time, anyone out there that's been joining, I am definitely open to being flexible on different times that work better for you. If we have people who are regularly coming, I want to make sure that it's also user-friendly for you. I started with this time because here where I'm at in Connecticut, it's evening and a lot of people are still working the day. They can hang out with their dogs. They can eat dinner while they're watching. But if you're, joining from all over and you're like, hey, we'd like a 10 a.m. Pacific time, like, cool. I'll be open to that. So thank you all for joining. I look forward to seeing you all next month, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.